Today on Mother Mayhem.
It is a manipulative tactic that aging parents often use. They will change their wills and they'll make it an announcement. They will use their wills and prospective inheritance to control their kids and get their adult kids to do their bidding. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. I'm your host, Heather Gray. Now, this is an episode, my friends, that's going to require you all to take at least one big deep breath, and you're probably going to need a cup of coffee or tea to help you settle your nerves as you listen in. It is a beast of a topic. Today, we're talking about deciding the boundaries when it comes to caring for your aging narcissistic mothers. This is a brutal crossroads that a lot of daughters listening in currently find themselves in or know that they will be in sooner rather than later. Your moms didn't love you in the ways that you needed and deserved. For many of you, when you were sick or needing something from her, she got worse. Now, as an adult, she's aging and may need you more, and you find yourselves in this impossible place of deciding whether or not you are going to care for the aging mother who never cared for you, her daughter. It is an impossible choice. I am going to jump into today's letters in a second, but we have 3 of them. So before I dive into their specifics, I want to offer all of you a bit of a frame. Most of us, regardless of cultures we were raised in or where in the world we are, were raised with the idea and expectation that caring for aging parents is done by their adult child. Some places and families outwardly state it, while others it is simply implied or assumed. It's a responsibility that so many of you listening assume that caring for your parents is required, regardless of how your mother treated you as a child or how she's treating you now. This is an issue that brings many adult daughters of emotionally limited or narcissistic parents to my own private practice. I need to say the quiet part out loud here. When that expectation is being stated or implied, we are usually picturing Mrs. Brady or Danny Tanner. We are picturing parents who sit with their kids and listen to their failings. We are picturing parents who went to their kids' soccer games and cheered them on. We're picturing families where it all gets worked out at the kitchen table. We are picturing families where the love is seen in word and in action. We are not picturing families like all of you were raised in, where emotional abuse was rampant, where children were made to feel not enough or forgotten altogether. We are not talking about any of the families of any of you listening to this show. And given that that is true, it is my bias that as a result of this, the so-called rules have to be reconsidered. If we think of the Brady kids or the Tanner kids from Full House, love was poured into them. Care was poured into them. They were seen and respected. So they have love in their storage that can fuel them and that can pour out of them to care for their aging parents. Where are all of you supposed to pour from when nothing was poured into you? You can't pour from an empty cup. How many times have all of us heard this? So the rules and the thinking have to be different. Likewise, it's been nearly a year of us together, and all I've done is talk to you week after week about what you do and don't deserve. I have never at any point in time said, don't accept abuse. You don't deserve it and you don't have to tolerate it unless, of course, your abuser is now aging and needs you. And then, in that case, of course, ignore what I said and tolerate it. I simply do not think that. We have talked about how big events make narcissistic people more narcissistic. People become more themselves when things get intense All of us do that. That is true for all of us. So, aging for a narcissist is a lot for them to handle. Looking different, moving different, feeling different. And after a lifetime of nothing ever being their fault, all of their thoughts and all of their feelings are going to be intensified. And they're more likely to escalate and take it out on those around them as they lose more and more control over what's happening to them. Taking care of your narcissistic and or emotionally limited parents as they age is a lot to take on. And the best way to do that is to get yourselves in the driver's seat of that decision. The best way I know how to recommend you all do this is to make it a values decision for yourselves. Given who you are and how you move through the world, what are your own thoughts and feelings about this? What feels true for you? For some of you, the rules do feel different when the parent is aging and needing more. And for others, it doesn't feel any different. There is no right or wrong answer, only the right or wrong answer for you. Everything I'm talking about today is helping you walk through the feelings of what is right for you. I can also tell you that for most of you, this is going to be a process. In a perfect world, you remove yourselves from the situation, you take some time to stop and think, and then you make a decision and you go with it. More often than not, though, this is about making a decision, saying yes to something, and that yes starts to feel like crap for you. It hurts. It becomes something you regret. It's something you thought you could do until you realize you couldn't. You intellectually thought you could, and then your body tells you that you can't. And those moments, it's super important to listen to your bodies to see what it is you need. If you're going to help your aging parents, what supports might you need in place? What will set you up for success? What boundaries do you need in place? What are you willing to do? What aren't you willing to do? Maybe you overextended and you need to dial it back. Maybe you need to turn the yes you said into a different yes. It's my observation that this stage in life for you and your parents is really messy. It isn't a straight line, and finding the yes that you're willing to live with often takes a little bit of that trial and error. It's a lot of self reflection, listening to yourself, and then standing up for yourself. Because as we know, our boundaries are rarely accepted with grace. You can expect pushback, and it can be brutal and triggering guilt trips and smear campaigns. I also want to address something that isn't often spoken out loud about this, and that is inheritance. Just like we're raised to believe that parents raise their kids, then kids raise their parents, some of you were raised with an awareness of the idea that you might be considered in the will after your parents pass. This is such a tough topic to tackle, but I'm getting ahead of it because it comes up in a letter we're going to be talking about later, and also because it is a manipulative tactic that aging parents often use. They will change their wills and they'll make it an announcement. They will use their wills and prospective inheritance to control their kids and get their adult kids to do their bidding. What they will or will not leave behind becomes another narcissistic tool. As you consider your values, what you will do and what you won't do, I'd be ignorant not to mention that you have to consider this. However, I will also tell you that it is my observational experience that narcissists are narcissists until the bitter end. I have sat with so many well meaning daughters who tended to their aging parents only to be left out of the will entirely. Their wills became their mother's tools, and there is no way of guaranteeing that anything you do or don't do will impact whether or not you inherit anything. Wills and the like are just often another thing narcissists and emotionally limited people will use to screw with those in their orbit. Because of this, I always ask clients to determine their course of action as if they won't inherit anything. Caring for aging parents to ensure inclusion in the will is just not a thing. I have seen that fail for my clients too many times not to mention it. So that's my spiel. That's how I want to organize the conversation for all of you. Let's dive in now to the first letter, and let me just go ahead and keep with the Full House reference and say we have DJ, Michelle, and Stephanie with us today. So here goes, starting with DJ. I stumbled across your podcast after researching narcissism after me and my sisters realized our mother was one. I was tired of talking about it and wanted recovery and wanted to learn how to move forward. I love your podcasts. They've been very helpful. History with me. I am 56. I have two sisters, 58 and 46. My mom, 76, is a covert narcissist. My dad passed away 11 years ago. He was an amazing dad, but he was also an enabler doing whatever she wanted. Me and my sisters figured out a couple of years ago that mom was a narcissist after we started sharing stories about what our mother had been telling the others about us and keeping us estranged for most of our lives. We thought the others didn't like us because of what mom was telling us they were saying. So we stayed away from each other and only talked to mom for years until recently. Learning the truth was both very freeing and very hurtful. Our mother has been lying and manipulating all of us our entire lives. Since then, my sisters and I have started the recovery process through mostly your podcast. I was the gray rock my whole life. My sister was the scapegoat and my younger sister the golden child. Since we've known the truth, me and my younger sister have turned gray rock with my mom, and my older sister is practically at the no contact stage. I don't judge either of them as we've all been extremely hurt by her time and time again. Fast forward to the current day. I think she's on to us and is grasping at anything to try to pull us back into her life. She's now playing the victim narcissist. Yesterday, we all got this text. Okay, family, I need your help. I have a monumental task to pack up and clean some stuff out. I can't do it all by myself. I need my family to help me. Can we set aside some times to pack up and organize, etc.? I know everyone's busy. I am facing surgery and a move. Let's organize some days, please. This is overwhelming to me now. If I have to get outside help, that would be shameful to me. Please help me. I'm calling BS on this to my sisters. Her surgery is still a month away, and the apartment she wants to move into doesn't have an opening for another 7 months. There is no rush. She only has us 3 girls and 3 grandchildren. All of us siblings have been amazing kids and have always wanted to be there to help one another with whatever she wanted, even after the awakening of knowing her narcissism. When I tell myself this and then read her text again, it pisses me off even more. I want to scream at her, but know that will do no good and give her more people to tell bad things about me. I'm tired of the lying and manipulating. The text of her trying to say we will shame her if she has to ask others for help really makes me want to say, sorry, Mom, I'm busy. Am I wrong here? I know she's old and it seems a little too late for no contact because at one point she will probably need our help. Currently, she can walk, not the best, but can walk, drive, cook, etc. It just makes me so angry every time I read it, and my mind keeps coming back to a podcast I heard you say, you aren't responsible for them. Aren't we though, as they get old and can't really take care of themselves? I know she's expecting us to. I'm hoping you have good advice on how to navigate this situation. Nope. DJ, you are not responsible. Just because someone names you responsible doesn't make you responsible. And yes, she is aging. And yes, she's going to need more. But many people who live as she has and acts as she has find themselves alone in their old age. Many narcissistic and emotionally limited mothers are going to die alone because they never knew how to love, and that is devastatingly sad. But the depth of that sadness does not erase the truth that it can be downright re-traumatizing for people to take care of aging parents that never cared for them. If you just can't do it, you just can't do it. She lied to you all for years and got away with it. And now the truth is out. It's catching up to her. I would reflect on your boundary and inform her. I wouldn't say you're busy or something that's arguable or debatable. I would just state the truth. I understand that you need help moving. That is something I am unwilling to do. You might be willing to help hire movers. You might be willing to watch your sister's kids while your sister helps her. You might find that you're willing to help in some other way that is less direct. And if so, you can work that out. But if you are unwilling to help her move, just name that. I wouldn't offer an explanation. She will only argue with you about it anyway. Just a simple, I have decided no will do. I cannot tell you, though, what it means to me that my show has been a vehicle for the healing between you and your sisters. What a special thing that is for me to know. Given that you and your sisters have reconnected and gotten closer, what's super important here is that you communicate with them what you want them to know and what you want them to think. You want to preserve the relationship with the people who have been showing up with you and for you. As you said, you are all in different places in your healing, so it's important to communicate to them where you are at, and it's important too that they are able to communicate with you where they are at. Remember too, none of this is fixed. Some of you might make a decision based on what works for you today and then find for yourselves that that doesn't work. You may have under-involved yourself or you may have over-involved yourself. You are never going to be able to guarantee that what you do is right for your mom, but you can do what's right for yourselves. Given that your mom is going to be a moving target on this, as long as even one of you is in touch with her, I would make a point of regularly checking in on where all of you are at with each other and how you're doing to keep the lines of communication clear. You are all healing together and listening to this show together, so I get to tell all of you together. Your sisters get to make the decisions your sisters are going to make. You may not understand a no contact decision, or you may not understand a low contact decision, but the best way to preserve the peace you have established inside your own relationships with each other is to meet yourselves where you're at and recognize you all experienced your mom differently, so your landing spots may be in different places too. It's important too that you communicate what you need from one another and how you can support one another. One of my current clients has gone low contact with her aging mother, but she's willing to help her sisters with the administrative and paper tasks associated with caring for their mom. So long as you stay in communication, say what you mean and mean what you say, you all will be fine. Okay, Stephanie, you're up next. Just to be clear for all of you Mayhem listeners here, the letter writers for today's episode are not related. I think that's assumed, but we're starting talking sisters and now DJ and Stephanie, and it can get all a little bit too meta for me. So Stephanie and I found ourselves in a bit of an email exchange. She had submitted this question ages ago, but my queue of questions was getting long, so I offered her a few quick things over email. I think the whole exchange offers insight into how I want you guys thinking about this for yourselves, so I'm going to share with you what she had originally said. This is what Stephanie had written. I want to thank you for your podcast and tell you how much you've helped me. Each episode feels like you're talking directly to me. It is unbelievable to me that there are other ladies in this very large boat, and I'm so sorry for them. I have a long story, so I'm only going to burden you with the high points. Our growing up family consisted of my mom, my very passive dad, my younger brother, and me. My mom was in mental facilities a few times while I was still in school. I especially recall two of them, and one of them quite vividly. I was in high school, and it was my day to go meet with my counselor and my mother. I brought flowers, I dressed nicely, and was ready. The first thing the counselor said to me was, "Tell me why you don't love your mother." My head began spinning, and all I remember after that was thinking, what? My whole life is based on showing up for her, showing her how much I love her, hoping I've done enough so she'll love me. Anyway, fast forward a bit. My dad finally left the year I was out of high school. My brother had just been starting high school. He eventually dropped out of school and became an alcoholic. This left me as the sole caretaker, comforter, friend, etc. to my mom. A few years out of school, I met my now husband, and we had been married a few months, and he told me that if our marriage was going to last, we could not live near my mom. A very smart husband there, Stephanie. So we moved to his home state, and as a result, we have been married for 45 years. You might think, well, you got your happy ending, but the road from there to here has been rough, and I'm still traveling it. My brother got clean and sober in his mid 30s, and instead of celebrating his recovery with the rest of us, my mom used it as a platform for guilt and shame for what he put her through, and as a result, he died by suicide at 39. That was 22 years ago. Fast forward again to 5 years ago. After a series of health issues, we made the decision to move my mom into our home. 1 year later, she fell and broke her hip. After surgery, she entered a rehab facility and never left. She's wheelchair bound, has congestive heart failure, cirrhosis, and kidney disease. Suffice to say, my husband and I are not equipped physically able to provide the level of care that she needs, which finally brings me to today. I'm 65 years old and trying to navigate a life of someone who has allowed her mom to live in a nursing home. The guilt that comes with this is difficult to say the least. At first, I visited every day. I brought her food, which she threw across the room. I met her every need in order to offset the fact that she's living in a nursing home. The current facility she's in, this is her third one, is very nice. She has a private room, and I feel confident she is receiving great care. However, after so many visits and phone calls that ended in my tears and her hurtful words, I have decided on limited contact. I call twice a week and I visit once a week. Now, finally, my question. What happened to make her this way? Were there childhood traumas she went through? And if so, shouldn't I endure the abuse to show her compassion for what she created through trauma brain? I'm struggling so much. I go from feeling like I can't do this anymore to I must be the bigger person and show her the compassion that her inner child deserves. It is a true and deep struggle for me, one that I sometimes feel like I won't survive, but I must. I'm so sorry for the on and on of this hitting the high points email, but any advice you might send my way is appreciated so much more than you'll ever know. Heather, you are the best, and I'm very thankful for you, your podcast, and all of my fellow listeners. Whew, okay. So this one hit when I read it, and I know it probably hits so many of you listening, and I know there are so many of you listening that share Stephanie's story. So here's what I first had to share with Stephanie and what I want you all to know too. I do believe it is you who is saving your own life. You are the one who is willing to speak your truth and live your way through it. I'm grateful for the opportunity and privilege of keeping you company on the path. I don't at all think you're doing anything wrong by keeping your mom in a nursing home. She's for sure going to get more specialized care, but also this is where you are saving your own life too. Because if she were at your home, she would be abusing you there too. Your wise mind already knows this, but here is what is also happening. You are imagining that what it would feel like for you to be living in a nursing home instead of with a daughter. Here's what you might be forgetting though. Your mom is looking at all of this through a broken lens, and she has a toolbox of tactics she uses to control the narrative and control your behavior. She doesn't even have to actually think or feel those things. She's just saying them to get you to react. So your best bet when she attacks is to remain neutral and simply say, I know you think that. I know you disagree, or something like that. Also, too, I wonder what it might be like for you to go even lower contact. to not visit or to not call. It doesn't sound like she engages in any kind of relationship with you when you call or visit. So if you're calling to be abused or you're visiting to be abused, I might ask yourself, why are you doing that? You're navigating all of this with your own trauma brain that hasn't quite healed, but it is your wise mind that's reaching out to me here, asking for support and speaking your truth. You're further along than you think. So, you guys, I'm bringing this email exchange to your attention for a reason because it brings up a really important point. So often, when daughters are exploring this scenario for themselves, they are imagining how awful it would be for them if their own daughters weren't with them as they died. They are imagining what it would be like to be left alone in a nursing home. You all have to be careful here because that leads to you looking at your mother's life through your lens. And remember what I said here, the lens through which she looks at the world is broken. She isn't looking at anything in her life and the way you look at yours. She won't experience aging as you would. She won't experience failing health as you would. And she won't experience the absence of a relationship as you would. Her lens doesn't magically repair because she's gotten old and come to see the error of her ways. There's probably your little girl self who's still hoping that isn't true, who's hoping that reconciliation at the end of her days, but that simply isn't who your mom is. And as you make decisions about how much time and energy you're going to invest in her caregiving, you all have to know that. Stephanie ended up chatting with me a bit more and offered, I appreciate your response so much. One of the things you said has really caused me to pause and think. You asked me if I am calling and visiting my mom to be abused, and if so, why? I never thought of that. Most of the time, I feel like I'm treading water in the middle of the ocean waiting for my rescue. But what if I'm so used to being abused that it feels natural? Yikes. I have felt that I was calling and visiting to be a good daughter, even though she doesn't acknowledge it. Maybe it is to be a good daughter in my eyes so I can live with myself. Anyway, this has given me food for thought, and I wanted to say thank you. I am so glad Stephanie took some time to stop and think about this, and I want all of you thinking about this too. What is keeping you going back to a relationship where you were spoken to in such an abusive manner? It isn't just Stephanie who's doing this. All of you are in these impossible situations. We know narcissistic and emotionally limited mothers can weaponize your relationships with other people and hold access to your fathers, your siblings, and other relationships hostage. We know too that they're capable of incredible smear campaigns. And the idea that your mom might tell nursing home staff that she's been abandoned just might not sit well with all of you. But here's the other thing I don't say often enough on this show. All of you, as a result of how you were raised, have absurd thresholds for pain. You can all take a lot and keep on ticking. So if your mom is older and can't physically get to you, it's easy to tell yourselves a story that she isn't that bad, or it isn't that bad because you have already lived through worse. If her age is lessening the blow or the impact of what she's capable of, it makes sense that you might tell yourself stories that you can handle her now because she doesn't have the ability to be so bad. That very well might be true, but why is accepting less abuse still okay? I want you guys considering that and checking in with yourselves about that. Okay, lastly, we have Michelle. Whew, Michelle's story is just as tough as the others. I have so much compassion for what all of you are going through and living through. So here's Michelle. Hi, Heather. I wanted to know if you could speak on how to navigate when you are the caregiver of your narcissistic mother. After 30 years of living my life, presumably over, quote unquote, the trauma of being raised by my mom, I thought she too was different. Our distant relationship had seemed respectful. So, with her in her approaching 90s and in good health, she sold her home, used that money to put a house on my property. So, in exchange, I will be caring for her until she passes. It seemed like a financially practical win win situation. So, we went forward with the plan, and now she is living in the addition to my house, and I am her caregiver. Upon the first week, I started to regret the decision. I am now the focus of her attacks, her financial manipulations. She's changing beneficiaries on her accounts constantly and tells me to see my reaction. She makes comments to hurt me. She tells crazy lies about me to neighbors and families, which is shocking how many people believe her stories. And most recently, threatens to call social services if I don't do X, Y, or Z. Then I learned about narcissism in your podcast. How do I manage? Holy heck. Goddamn, Michelle. This sucks and this is so awful. And you must feel so bamboozled and manipulated, not to mention trapped. What a fucking sucker punch. Okay, first thing, you have to do the part you're already doing, facing the situation. I believed the relationship with my mom had moved to X point, so as a result, I made the choice to Y. You have to look at that and you have to forgive yourself for it. Show yourself grace, show yourself compassion, and forgive yourself. If you don't, you will carry a story that you deserve this, that this is what you get. We know your moms can do some damage, but often the worst damage I see is what some of you do to yourselves. So you have to forgive yourself, sister. You made the decision to have her in your home, to expand your home, and to take care of her. In a perfect world, we could just say, kick her out and be done. But we know that isn't really realistic. We know you all have your finances tangled up in your home remodel, and we know this is messy. So let's look at what is actually in front of you. Now that your mom is treating you this way, what is your response? When you agreed to care for her and help her, it was because you thought she would be kind and that your relationship would be respectful. So now that she's being disrespectful, what are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? She is disrespecting the relationship in your own home. And even though we know she'll tell you the addition is because of her, it's still your home and you do not have to engage in relationship with her in the same way. You don't have to engage in small talk. You don't have to ask her how she is. You can hire out tasks that you are doing for her. You can let her know that you understand she's changing her mind about her relationship with you, so you're disengaging. It's absurd that you're being betrayed by people who are believing her smear campaigns. And I'm so sad for you that your people are letting you down in this way. But also remember what I've said before on the show. It can be hard for people to stand up to the narcissist lest they become one of your mom's victims. So even people going along with that nonsense may not actually believe it. If she's going to change the benefactor, she's going to change the benefactor. Let her. You heard me tell Meredith a few episodes ago that she has to remove the stinger. When your mom says she's going to change the benefactor, say, yes, I understand. Don't engage. Don't give it attention. Just say, okay. Remain neutral. She's baiting you, trying to get you to react. So don't give her that. Just say, okay. We have no idea why she became abusive and dysregulated again, but this is who she is. This is who she's always been. We have no idea how she perceived anything that's been going on or what it's been like for you to watch you in your home close up. Maybe she started to feel threatened or jealous. There is no way of knowing. All we know is your mom is being who she's always been, and you are challenged to decide who you want to be in response. I'm recommending that you disengage, that you pull back, that you work on gray rock and yellow rock. And oh my God, if I had $1 for every time I have heard women like your mom threaten elder abuse, I'd have Starbucks for life. If your mom wants to threaten, oh, I kind of like the idea of Starbucks for life. If your mom wants to threaten abuse, let her. I don't know how sassy or cheeky you are, but I would even ask her if she needs help finding the number. Let her bring it. And if you didn't add her name to the title of your home, it would be her who would be kicked out. So let her threaten. And remember, just because she is threatening this nonsense doesn't mean that she actually thinks she's being abused. It's just a weapon she's using because it works. So if she's threatening to report you, say okay. I know that because people are believing her smear campaigns, there's a part of you that thinks that the people investigating elder abuse would believe your mom over you. That isn't really the way it works. I'm a social worker by original training, and I can tell you that there is a long road between a report being filed and anything specific happening to the person who's been accused. There needs to be proof, there needs to be a record, there needs to be a whole hell of a lot of things. So don't just stop what you're doing and think your mom has control simply by threatening to report you. You would actually do well having those people in your back pocket because your mom will very likely show herself to be who she is. And people who are investigating elder abuse are often very familiar with people like your mom and know what the deal is without you even having to say so. Also, though, what is the natural consequence for someone who calls you an elder abuser? Do you still have meals with them? Do you still sit with them and make conversation? Do you still interact with them? I would start to think about that. Your heart is hurting because the little girl in you thought you were getting your happy ending. You thought you were healing and that you and your mom had defied the odds. Of course, it hurts that it's all going to hell. I hope you have support. I hope you're staying close to the people who see you, who know you, who believe you. And I hope you can work to remove the stinger of her words and disconnect from her shenanigans as much as possible. I am so sorry to know that you're going through this, but you are in a community of women around the world who are in this with you, and I most definitely am too. Bye for now. I'm so grateful that you're here. You're right where you're supposed to be. At its heart, I'm hoping to use this show to build a community of women working together to heal from childhoods marked by maternal narcissism and emotional neglect. My goal for Mother Mayhem is that this show becomes an advice and mentoring driven show where you share your questions, struggles, and stories, and I offer you direction for healing and recovery. That can't happen without your contributions. I invite you to send a recorded voice memo or write in an email with your questions and things you're struggling with. You can always find me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. To connect further, I invite you to find me over at Instagram and occasionally on TikTok at DaughtersNPD. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, I'm going to ask that you share the show with her. You can help me get the word out with your reviews and social shares of the show, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing this show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks for your time today. I'm always in it with you. Bye for now.